I want to welcome you all, honorable members, to this sitting. And allow me to welcome the new members that we have amongst us. Honorable Makume. We also want to welcome Honorable Mahlatsi. Would also like to welcome Honorable Liedo. Thank you. And there is one member missing. Oh, Honorable Litsuwa Matai. Welcome, Honorable Member. Today's plenary is convened in terms of Rule 13 of the Standing Rules and Orders to afford the Honorable Premier an opportunity to reply to the debates on the State of the Province address. The Honorable Premier may reply to the debates on the State of the Province address.
Madam Speaker, we are meeting here today in this chamber just 2 days after we had laid the mortal remains of one of our own members to rest. Let me take this opportunity to thank you, Madam Speaker, and the members of this august House for accepting our Executive Council's request to suspend and postpone all the activities of this House by a week to give honor to a life of service well lived. I would like to thank all the leaders and members of the opposition parties represented in this House, the Democratic Alliance, the Economic Freedom Fighters, the Freedom Front Plus, for their support and for the messages of support to the family of the late Warrant Officer Vuyo Mdi. We thank all the members for honoring them the way you did. Siyabonga. Singukhongoloso nangomso. I would like also to thank the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, and the Chief Whip, as well as the Executive Council, for supporting the two families. Thank you, DG, for leading the HODs and the other officials, especially from the Department of Education, for the dignified send-off given to these two heroes. Thank you, Mayor Mamiki Kabati, for the sterling job you did in leading the team that was organizing the funeral. Let me also thank the Minister of Basic Education, Honorable Angie Motshekga, the Deputy Minister, Dr. Regina Maule, the Premier of Northern Cape, Honorable Dr. Zamani, the Premier of Gauteng, other MECs from other provinces who paid their tribute and visited the family of Mdi and Mahwe during the most difficult period in their lives. On behalf of the people of the Free State province in general and the family of education, the learners, the parents, the unions, educators, officials, senior managers, and all the stakeholders in education, we thank the President for honoring the late Honorable Pule Herbert Isaac Mahwe by agreeing to the request from the Free State Executive Council and permitting that this giant's funeral be granted the Provincial Office Funeral Category 1. A great befitting honor to a warrior with inequality. The families involved, the family ya Khayani, ya Mahwe, kaofela ha bona re a leboha. We pray for the speedy recovery to good health to Warrant Officer Nkopane, who was the driver and protector of the late MEC Mahwe. Mohawe Modimo ka o ka ba le ena fole. Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the speakers who participated in the debate of the State of the Province address. It was clear from the inputs that the members were concerned about the poor state of our infrastructure, especially water leakages and irregular supply of water, very poor state of our roads, potholes on our streets, sewer spillages all over, especially in our townships, landlessness, especially for the Africans, poor state of our health public centers, high level of unemployment, constant disruption to energy supply, malfeasance and poor leadership both politically and administratively. The members of the opposition, especially the DA and Freedom Front Plus, have raised objections and displeasure in the BBBE, CADA deployment, EPWP projects as job creators, EPWP project as job creators. In fact, their approach is that of ridiculing, even undermining any attempt of intervention applied or implemented to deal with inequality, poverty, and unemployment. We are the first to accept that poor leadership and lack of clarity and purpose, as well as corruption and poor management, have all contributed to exacerbating the situation further. Madam Speaker, it is very important for the honourable members to understand that the history of poverty and inequality during apartheid and even before. If we are serious about addressing the challenges of poverty and inequality in our beautiful country today, our understanding of the problem is very critical. I'm raising these issues so that we know exactly that the anxieties that you see today have a history, and the anxieties that will be expressed from time to time in this House have nothing to do with the building of a society that all of us should be able to share in its wealth. But they are informed by other issues that I will raise here. Madam Speaker, it is very important for the honourable members to understand the history of poverty and inequality, as I said before. And this background, or if you like, history, will perhaps remind them, how did we get here? And maybe their conscience will be pricked a bit, and they'll for once be remorseful and work with us to address these challenges created deliberately to protect one race at the expense of the entire population of this beautiful country of ours. Maybe it will challenge all of us to start working together and becoming co-creators of a province we will all be proud of. Let me first clarify the challenge we are facing. Ours is structural poverty that has contributed immensely to the state of inequality recognized in the world as being the highest. Honourable members, there is a clear distinction between conjunctural poverty and structural poverty. What has been visited upon the majority of the people of this country is structural poverty. And this has been designed and executed deliberately to address the fears and anxieties of the white community over a long period of time. This is the history they will want us to forget, and they'll do everything to undermine any effort geared towards addressing these three interlinked challenges. Structural poverty is the long-term fate of individuals or families due to their social circumstances beyond their control, a shortage of land, servitude, widespread unemployment, etc. A study of the poor white question and its dramatically effective solution is significant in two main respects. One, it is a case study of poverty as susceptible to policy interventions. Two, some of the ways in which the problem of white poverty was addressed by politicians in the early decades of the 20th century had direct, profound, and lasting implications for black poverty as we see it today. The Carnegie Commission confirmed that the poor whites were created by economic forces only after the banking crisis in 1890, and it stated the following, and I quote, "It was especially after 1880 that the new conditions created a landless rural class. What really took place in the 1880s and 1890s was new ways of perceiving white poverty, of identifying it as a poor white problem. But in the 1890s, a set of intersecting ideas about the nature of poverty, about the threats to health of slum conditions, and about the dangers of race mixing leading to degeneration meant that the poor white problem was about to be discovered and defined. Politicians, churchmen, editors, and other opinion makers seized upon the degradation of the white population as a crucial issue. Sarah Duff pointed out that the racialization of poverty discourse in the 1880s and 1890s accompanied a general shift towards a more segregated colonial society. Schools, prison, transport, hospitals, recreation areas, and workplaces all became gradually more divided along racial lines. The discovery of poor whites in the 1890s was not so much a response to any real changes in the nature of colonial poverty as it was a reflection about the future of South Africa as we see it now. In 1913, a government select committee warned that, and I quote, the European minority cannot allow a considerable number of its members to sink to apathy, indigency, and to fall behind the level of the non-European worker. If they do, our race is bound to perish in South Africa, unquote. In short, urban whites became poor white, a category perceived to require the state's attention. The new union government tackled the problem of urban slums in several ways: public health legislation, the rehousing of white workers in purpose-built housing, and the removal of black people to new racially segregated sites. These various urban reform measures, especially in terms of segregation, were conscious attempts to contain white poverty, and in this sense, the poor white problem is central to any explanation of the rise of segregation in South Africa. The government commissions in 1913 and 1921 reframed the problem as urban in its character and as an economic problem of ominous proportions. Politically and ideologically, white poverty served as a lightning rod. It concentrated and discharged anxieties. Such anxieties were acute as E.G. Malherbe, who initiated the Carnegie Commission inquiry into white poverty, recalled years later, poor whites were a menace to the self-preservation and prestige of the white people. Many poor whites were Afrikaners, and this was a source of particular alarm to ministers of Dutch Reformed Church and to the Afrikaner nationalist politicians. We are among the first to call for actions. White poverty moved to the political center stage with the formation in 1924 of the pact government, a coalition between Hertzog's National Party and the Labour Party, with Herzog as the Prime Minister. The pact government was doubly sensitive to the issue of white poverty. It was the pact government that appointed the Carnegie Commission, which delivered its massive report on the poor white question in 1933. The pact government and its successor, the fusion government, headed by Herzog, sought to reduce white poverty through three main approaches. And I would like to invite members. For instance, one member of the DA stood here, and as you know, I don't know for loss of a better way to use, when was referring to the use of EPWP, and you know, the way he put it, he actually also forgot This, and that's what I want members to understand, where we're coming from, what needed to be done at the time in addressing what they termed a poor white problem. It was identified as a problem at the time, and they did everything to address that. And these are some of the things that were done to address this problem. A legislative package regulating the labor market to protect white workers from competition. White workers were protected from competition. Today we are ridiculed when we speak of cadre deployment. But I'm just saying, white workers were protected from competition. The civilized labor policy relied partly on a job caliber, creating a rigid caste arrangement between white and black workers to the benefit of the white worker. Whites were guaranteed wages that enabled them to live a civilized life, that is, a wide standard of living. The Industrial Conciliation Act of 1924, the Wage Act of 1925, and the Mines and Workers Amendment Act, accurately nicknamed the Calabar Act of 1826, had a considerable combined effect. They created a system of industrial relations, but with a definition of employees that effectively excluded all African workers from its operations. Then they enabled a wage board to set minimum wages for white workers not incorporated in the industrial councils. And they ensured that certain skilled occupations became the sole preserve of white workers. Unskilled white workers were protected by minimum wage levels. Skilled white workers won rights to monopolize the best paid niches of employment. The second element was an ambitious program of public works, Honorable Member of the DA, to create jobs for whites. By 1933, about 59,000 poor whites were employed in various relief measures, irrigation scheme, road and dam building, and rail construction. And yet, when we do all these things, they are ridiculed as if they will not create any jobs. You did it, and you created this thing. In terms of job creation, unskilled and semi-skilled white workers.
Honorable Jefferson, I'm going to say this, and I always say it. When you take the podium and debate, nobody talks back at you. You should not do that. When there is a speaker on the podium, you must listen to the speaker. Stop howling when the speaker is on the podium. I didn't hear you say dogs are what?
No, you said I'm howling dogs are people.
No, but that is what you are doing. You are howling. You are howling in the house. Say it when there is a speaker on the podium. It is a rule. The only moment you will speak is when you raise a point of order. And you raise a point of order when there is a parliamentary process or practice that has been done in the House, or when there is unbecoming behavior. Other than that, you don't talk when the speaker is on the podium. Please. Proceed, Honorable.
By 1939, the central government, in fact, between 1924 and 1933, unskilled white workers rose from 9.5% of the workforce on the railways to 39.3%. In terms of job creation, unskilled and semi-skilled white workers were employed on the railways, which replaced black workers with white workers, and in the new state-owned iron and steel giant ISCO. By 1939, the central government employed 98,000 of white workers, over half of whom were on relief work. In the short term, it was the introduction of a systematic and elaborate public works program that most rapidly eliminated white poverty. Number three, the thrust of pact and fusion policies saw the sustained expansion of government services to white families, especially education, health, and housing. In the 1930s, the central government made available funds that enabled Johannesburg to provide subsidized public housing for white families, the whites. There was a massive drive to improve the standard of white schooling. A state-supported diffusion of numeracy, literacy, and skills for white children. That was excluding black children. It was this investment in human capital that in the longer term eliminated white poverty. Linked to the provision of public service to white families was a massive increase of social welfare provisions funded by the state with primarily white beneficiaries. In 1928, honorable members, all I'm asking is for members to hear this so that we should be sensitive in what we say in this House about issues that were deliberately, structurally made to create the mess we are sitting with now. And we should hold hands, all of us, to help rebuild our society. The Act made pensions available to white and colored men and women. They were non-contributory, funded entirely by the state. In 1930s, other forms of state-funded social protection were added: unemployment benefits, job programs, pensions for the blind, disability grants, welfare for poor children. These were mainly to white beneficiaries, and to a lesser extent to coloreds. Africans and Indians were excluded. In short, policies of the Pact and Fusion government protected white workers against competition from black workers and created jobs for unemployed whites. They also ensured that white families would receive the best education, best social care, best job opportunities, and highest pensions. These policies and the rapid recovery from the Depression from 1933 onwards meant that white poverty declined sharply. By 1936, the Department of Labor and Social Welfare announced that there was no longer a surplus of black people. By 1942, white poverty was to all practical purposes eliminated. But the solution of the poor white question had profound and lasting implications for black poverty. African mine workers were frozen out of skilled work, not because they lacked the competency to do it, but precisely because they were or soon would be competent. Other African workers were excluded from the apprenticeship. Reducing white poverty became a political priority. In addressing it, the state increasingly defined the relationship between white prosperity and white supremacy. Natras and Sikkings remarked that replicating civilized standards of living for the white minority could be sustained only through systematic discrimination against the majority. And who were this majority? These are these people who are poor today, many of them. Policymakers were aware of both rural and urban poverty among the African population, but little to address the symptoms, let alone the causes of such poverty. This is what 1994 meant that we needed to do. 3 decades. And this was created over more than 100 decades. At the risk of oversimplifying, one can identify these responses to black poverty: segregation, parsimony, and social control. You know what parsimony is? This was the refusal by white people to pay for infrastructure meant for black people. They refused. And what they call a Durban system was introduced. We will talk about that. Firstly, segregation proceeded from the premise that Africans' property belonged in native reserves as demarcated by the 1913 Land Act and extended in 1936. Secondly, that towns and cities were European domains, where black people should only enter to minister to the needs of whites and should depart from when they cease to minister. Thirdly, that people were busy ministering to whites, while black people were busy ministering to whites' needs, they should be confined to particular areas of the city. Black poverty was to be kept specially separated, both in the countryside, cities, and towns. This dual exclusion was fundamental to South Africa's social geography of extremes. Parsimony was embedded in the reluctance by white voters and politicians to pay for black welfare or progress. It also involved ingenious methods to ensure that Africans, however poor, bore the main cost of their administration. In urban areas, the template was the Durban system, which involved the creation of a municipal beer monopoly. Le a tseba bana beso, ba holetse makeisheneng. Lekeisheneng le leng ho na le tsela e le nngwe fela e kenang ho controla movement wa batho ba batsho. Ha thoko ho na le police station, ka thoko ka side le leng ho na le beer hall. Ke mono so gambie mqombothi o no rekiswa teng fela. Ha batswadi ba rona ba rekisa mqombothi ba ne ba tshwarwa. Hore mqombothi ona ba lo nwa ntho ba reng tsa bona hore ba tle ba nke tjhelete eo e be yona e sebediswang for infrastructure e etsang le ke bane le yona hona jwale. The revenue from the beer sales was then earmarked for municipal expenditure on Africans, for example, the construction of municipal barracks or hostels and police force directly financed by beer revenue. The Durban system was made national in the 1923 Natives Urban Areas Act. It allowed for the establishment of municipal beer monopolies in every city and separated the financing of the locations from that of the city by creating a separate self-balancing native revenue account. The same logic was applied in the native reserves. Locally collected hard tax, quatrains, and the other fees were used to pay for the highly limited infrastructure and services in these areas. The third generic policy response towards black poverty was to strengthen social control over the black population, to tighten the grip of white supremacy. Long before apartheid was launched in 1948, the South African state developed an extensive apparatus of repression based primarily on control over movement. Passes, permits allowed the ruling class to keep African workers in a permanent state of subordination. Stringent measures controlled where Africans lived, worked, and where they were schooling. I've narrated this history deliberately so that we should live under no illusion that the task that we have is huge. But that is not excusing all of us from being responsible in the authority and the power given to us. That we must do everything in our power to be deliberate and to be purposeful in addressing the poverty that we see among our people. We have said in our constitution that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. And this means all of us must share in everything that is worth in creating the living conditions that are better for all of us. And this means that we have to work together to undermine the monopolies that exist, that exclude other races and only allow other races to grow and become rich and richer at the expense of others. If we love South Africa, all of us, we need to work for this country. We need to understand that this, what I've explained, was a defined problem. It was given a name. Poverty in South Africa had color. And this created a problem we are sitting with today. And this also, as honorable members, would argue in this House, boldly, and sometimes condescending to say the least, as if they do not understand the crisis that we are facing and its origins. And today, people want us to remember only that these things existed from 1994. They existed, and I only drew you to 1800. It goes far beyond that. All I'm asking you, to be sensitive. I see some of our members are boiled, and they go on and talk and as if our people do not feel this pain. We feel this pain every day. Our people feel this pain that some of you will ridicule whenever you get an opportunity. You might not understand the impression you are creating every time. Every time a black person is given a responsible, an impression is created that you are a failure simply because of your color. And we've got to prove ourselves over and over and over that we are equal for this task. But our colleagues, our own brothers and sisters, are not sensitive to this reality. All we are asking, as we debate and discuss some of these issues, a little sensitivity is needed. You may think that we are living in a South Africa that is free, but I have bad news for you. If we continue at the rate we are continuing now, you will face a revolt that you will never wish that you could face. Our people are landless. We have to fight. We have got to do everything to give our people land. When this land was taken to them by force, and no compensation was given to them. And we are trying every time to really create a situation where we say, we are not going to pull you down for us to go up. We want to be where you are. Give us a chance. We can't plead to be given a chance. Just be sensitive a bit. So I'm asking all of us, Honorable Speaker, that the Free State has an opportunity, working together, the DA, the Freedom Front Plus, the EFF, and the ANC in this House, we will build a better province. If we have to understand that build a society we will all be proud of. We can play our political games in this House, try to score political points, but we are doing this at the expense of poor people, at the expense of people who do not have any meal. So we need to have this sensitivity as we address issues in the House. So I'm asking all of us to be statesmen in representing those who have brought us here and work in building the Free State that can play a meaningful role. The Free State has not been playing the role that it should be playing. We have the chance to turn things around. The state, we must build the capacity of the state to deliver to the people. We must make sure that all those who are given responsibility to discharge their responsibilities with care, with humility, with empathy, with the utmost love. They must understand that this is just an opportunity. Let's use it to take our people out of poverty. It doesn't help to have resources that are actually misdirected because of our poor leadership, of our insensitivity to realities, of our corrupt nature. People talk about politicians as being dishonest. We are a microcosm of our society. Something is wrong with our society. We are not from any other. We are from this society. And it means there's something very wrong about this society that we're trying to build. We're given a chance to turn things around. But if we waste it, we will regret it, and one day our children will say, men and women who were here did not live to what was expected of them. We can play to the gallery as much as we want, but as long as we are not doing what we're supposed to do, it is not going to help us in any way. Our people need a government that will provide food security for them. We need to build to make sure that we've got food banks. We need in the province to ensure that we build the capacity to process what we are producing here, so that we build factories. We need to have energy security. We are a province right at the center, and that we should take and use that opportunity. And in doing that, we must make sure that we take advantage of what we have. We must do everything to make sure that in the Harib region and others, we build solar plants, we use and also plant hemp that will help us in building factories that will bring about the required material, fabric for textile, and also energy production. It has been proven that the oil that you will get from hemp, the diesel that you will get from hemp is actually much better than what we have now. And it doesn't mean that we need to have any modification to the engine. So we need to produce hemp, and the areas that we should be targeting are Harib. And we should do this and reimagine Harib differently and make sure that we deliver what we have to deliver. We have also to position the Free State as a hub, as a center for the renewable energy. We have the gas. We must use it and make sure that we combine this gas and other productions like hemp, as well as solar energy, and even many others that we can think of, in order to ensure that we are able to provide energy security for our province and for the country. The water security is very important. South Africa is a water-scarce country. Our planning and everything that we do must take into consideration this reality. We must make sure that at least we must go on and campaign and make sure that we build a dam at least. There are other plans that were there to build in some dams. We must do this. And during this season, when there's so much rain, etc., we're able to prepare for the time when there is no rain, when there is no water. And this can only be done by people who plan, who have a vision, and who understand the purpose of the power that is given to them. And I'm asking all of us to really do this for this country. We are the province that has spent a lot of money in educating our children. The question that we must be asking ourselves, is there any value for money, the return of investment for the community of the Free State? And we need to do a lot of reskilling of our children. As we speak now, we do not have skilled people in many other fields, like welding. We need to train many artisans, and this is an opportunity for us as a country, as a province, especially as the Free State, to lead in multi-skilling and skilling our children. The future beckons, but the future is very complex. And it demands skills that many of us may not even think of. We need to prepare for such eventualities. As I said when I deliver this, it is only those who think and who are worried about the generations who will do everything in their power to really get things done. And this is the time that the Free State must get people who care, people who would make sure that we change the situation of our province for the better. And we hold hands in building this province. There's no other thing. We are here, and we are here, all of us. We've got the responsibility to build this province together. So the choice is all of you. It's for all of you to decide whether you want to be part of building this province or you want to be a part of people who will be standing by the side and only pointing the faults that others are doing. And we welcome those who would also criticize but give solutions. This is the best way we can all work together. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Premier. Honorable members, I did receive the leave of absence for Honorable Simanga. I missed it at the beginning when I was making my announcements. The reply by the Honorable Premier brings us to the end of the business of the House today. The House shall now adjourn until Thursday, 16th of March 2023 at 14:15 at Sports Ground, Orani Graf Combined School, Kharibdan. The business of the day shall be the tabling of the appropriation bill and second adjustment of the appropriation bill by the Honorable MEC for Finance. Honorable members, the House is adjourned. Thank you.